Hello there, VC and YouTube. I need to down the volume a bit on Mr. Sinatra. Sitting here, have a little cozy time. Tomorrow here in Sweden it is Christmas Eve, and that's the time here where we celebrate the Christmas. So taking a little break after having dinner, and I'm going to, as it is Christmas, I'm going to deliver some Christmas presents to you in form of suggestions of records, and it has to do with a thread going on in the vinyl community. Turn off this. A thread going on in the vinyl community. It's FlipSideCT. Steve, hello there, Steve, who has a thread going on called Under the Radar, where he wants us to show records that are not all that mainstream, that should be mainstream, and that are a bit overlooked, and that we feel that wants to have more, that we wants to suggest whether to other people at the vinyl community. So I have taken a little nice suitable Christmas bag here with some records that I feel could be great for members of the vinyl community to have under the Christmas tree, whether or not you celebrate it on, as in USA, on Monday, or like us tomorrow. So let's see what's first in this bag. And I think I'm going to start with some 90s. As sorry, if you think that Suede and Oasis and Blur are more or less the only ones, only bands that are in the genre Britpop, indie pop, whatever you will call it, you're wrong. There are other bands that came up in the 90s that weren't all too famous, all that famous as the more popular British bands. And I'm going to give you a tip of 3 bands that actually did some Britpop but never got the real fame as the other ones. Here is a band called Cost, and their albums all change. Cost was in the same era as Oasis and Suede, and I'm not sure how big they became in Great Britain, but everywhere else it wasn't all that many who heard of them. But I think they are extremely good. They're extremely great songs here. I think a favorite of mine is the ballad Walk Away, a song that could be in the same league almost as Wonderwall with Oasis, for instance. So highly recommended Cost's album All Change from 1995 actually. Here's an album. Many of these albums I may have been shown before in previous videos, but the new subscribers that might not have seen them. This is a band called Octopus that I know exactly nothing about, except from when I bought this one not bought. I got it for free when a record store in Stockholm was shutting down, and gave away loads of CDs for free. And I took it, and it was actually real good. It was Britpop, very much Britpop sounding. From A to B is the title of the album, and believe it or not, I'm not going to take that out once again, but see here, it's actually combined record and a board game. So if you want, you can listen to the record, and you can sitting around the table and play a nice game by listening to it, and it's really good. Also very much indie pop, a little rocky, and also Northern Uproar. Once again, also like cast a band that I'm not sure how big they became in Great Britain, but everywhere else they were pretty. I feel that they were pretty much forgotten. From a Window, I love that song very much. Also a band that sounds very much Britpop from the 90s. So let's pick all these out. The 70s, I haven't all that much 70s. There's a whole lot of 70s soul bands that I'm. It's a little new genre still to me, so I'm not too sure which of the bands that I have in the soul genre that are exactly unknown, or which ones who was in the shadows. But here is a name that I bought many years ago. I've shown it in one of my earliest vinyl CD updates, I think. From 1976, a bad name that I never heard or seen from after I bought this one, called Angelo. Angelo is much bit 70s pop, very funky and great. And the most interesting about Angelo, besides he also has great melodies, is that you can find a whole lot of names from Chicago here, and some great names here. You have Pete Cetera is here, you have Tony Scott, Carl Wilson, you have Dennis Serafine, a whole lot of great names here, making this album a real funk orgy, a real great one with a lot of horns, and I really like this one. Definitely, I never heard of Angelo before. I never heard of him before, and I got really positively surprised when I heard of this one. Here is a soul name band that I have checked out. I checked out at Google that they weren't all that big. And when I listen to this album, I feel that they should have been a whole lot bigger, actually. The Masqueraders. I shown this one not too long ago. Since then, I've been listening to it also. Really great album. If you like Temptations or OJs and that, this one is right there for you. It's a great band. They have been around since the 50s, almost, much like Drifters and so on. These guys have also been around for a very long time. This album is called Love Anonymous. And this is actually only their second album released in 1977. They started pretty late releasing records. They didn't get any record label contract until then. They got released a couple of albums until 1980 on a very small label, until they actually disbanded. The sad thing about it is that they reunited, but not in the way that other bands by going on a tour. They had to be reunited at America's Got Talent and with other youngsters who striving for becoming famous for various things of juggling and bicycling and singing different covers. This one has to start from the bottom at audition show and television. It's very, very sad because they actually made so great music, so highly recommended. Coming to 80s and some synth pop related stuff. Here's a name that was very much talked about, but I don't think he became all that big as he should have been. Rupert Hines, an album that I bought at the record fair years ago. Immunity from 1900 and I think it's around 81, 82. Really, really relaxing and very little mysterious and early form of synth pop. It's a song here, I Hang On To My Vertigo. A real fantastic song, real special mysterious song that is real fascinating, and that goes through this entire album, so extremely well produced and well made. Highly recommended. And if you like Ultravox, that kind of synth pop, and want to find alternatives maybe, the Mobiles can be a very good alternative. They only released this album, the self-title, but they had a very minor hit in England with Drowning in Berlin and Amour, but never became big at all. The singer's name is Annabelle. And I think she moved to Spain pretty much after this band has disbanded after this one album only. But it is really, really great sounding. It's very extremely well produced. Great 80s synth pop that maybe was drowning in every other synth pop from Great Britain that came out during this time. And we have also here another great band in the synth pop era, but this one is made in 1985, so it's some crisscross between 80s pop and synth pop. Person to Person. And the main name here is Dave Palmer, who is a member of ABC. This is a side project of his, and the album is called Stronger Than Person, and Stronger Than Reason. Sorry, I'm here totally off cycling here, but. I bought a single from this one, Love on the Rebound, at a flea market. And it was blind buy. I had no idea what this was, but it looked very interesting. And 1985, my favorite year. So when I see that and I make a blind buy, I go for it. And it was really, really good. And not long after that, I managed to, at the same flea market actually, find this album with them. They never become all that big, and soon Palmer was back in ABC again. But really, really great 80s pop music. Maybe you can compare somewhere between maybe late Go and Little ABC, maybe some Climby Fish or something like that. Really, really great and relaxing 80s pop. Here is a band that I've been discovering through Swedish radio. and a band that is really great. The singer's name is Paul Roberts, and he is has a fantastic, unique, great voice, little raspy voice that could almost sound like Rocky, but the music is very little laid back, sometimes rocky, little blues in it, but most of all nice, relaxing pop rock. And the band I'm talking about is Sniff and the Tears. This is an album called Ride Blue Divide, and really love this band. I have, as of right now, all their albums. Their only fame came in 1979, and after that they actually no one really cared about them, and I think the only one thing I'm missing is the later album from the 90s, and my favorite album is this one, The Game's Up, from 1980. Check out the song Poison Pen Mail. A real great one. I really like that song. I really like this album overall. Really fantastic, great, relaxing, and great album. Some indie pop from the 80s. This is the Persuit of Happiness. It could be seen as an alternative for you who likes XTC, maybe a little in the same indie pop genre as XTC. This is an album called Love Junk from 1989. Really great album, produced by Todd Rundgren actually. Check out the song She's So Young. A real great indie pop song, The Persuit of Happiness. The Go-Go's is mainly famous for Belinda Carlisle, but she's of course not the only one from that band who has released albums. I actually have 3 albums with another of the members that I think was sadly forgotten in the shadow of Belinda Carlisle. As great as Belinda Carlisle is, I like her very much, but this one is also worth to notice. Jane Wiedlin. This is the album Tangled, and from 1990. Real great one. I actually got these albums when I was in high school, and real great one. This is Fur from 1989. It's the most famous album by her. She had a minor hit, very much minor hit here with Rush Hour, but Inside a Dream, also a great song. So it's produced by Stephen Howe, that produced a lot of 80s bands. Here is another one, an early one from 1985. Going to have some jazz also. Having here a jazz musician that I don't know if you how many who have heard of him. I never heard of him. This was more or less a blind buy when I got it. I actually bought it because it felt interesting. It was definitely a jazz album. It looks like the 50s. It looks like I heard one name, Conte Condoli on trumpet, and he is a good one. So I felt like, why not? The Herb Geller Sextet, definitely a name that was way behind Stan Getz and Jerry Mulligan and all these names, but it is just as good, just as great swinging, cool bebop jazz as the more famous names. We have here Herb Geller, Lorraine Geller, his wife, at piano, Ziggy Wines, you have Conte Condoli, Elridge Freeman, Leroy Vinegar and Red Mitchell sharing the bass. of course, that is another name that I know of course, but it's not much familiar names otherwise, and Herb Geller was very much positive surprise. And finally, a jazz name that also I've heard of in Swedish radio, but I never found an album with him. And we're talking about Johnny Bothwell and his orchestra. Johnny Bothwell was a member of Boyd Rayburn Orchestra, which is another of my favorite bands, who definitely comes for something new in big band in the 40s, with very much influenced by classical music and experimented a lot. And Johnny Bothwell follows in the same category, also very, very special. Very special big band music, sometimes with both big bands and strings, and so special because here all of a sudden in the middle of a ballad you can speed up the tempo and do some real swinging, just to 2 minutes later go back to being a ballad. That is not something you hear every day in big band from the 40s. And this is real forgotten big band leader that definitely worth mentioning a whole lot. Boyd Rayburn himself I could have had here also, but I think that I've shown him a lot. So with that, by the community, with those tip of little forgotten albums and names in music history, I hope that each and every one of you have a real nice Christmas, and that you get a whole lot of presents with music in, or Christmas presents that you like overall, and eating some great food. So Merry Christmas everyone, and take care, and so long.